All right, we are back for another great episode of Black Equity Premium. On the line, we have Calvin Williams. Calvin, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. And yourself?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for asking. I want to welcome you to our Black Equity Premium channel. And
Mhm.
for those who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about your company and yourself.
Of course. So my name is Calvin Williams, and I was born and raised in Maryland, and that's where I got my technology start. I was fortunate enough to be recruited by the Department of Defense at 17 to build top secret computer programs. And then after then, I went to North Carolina A&T, launched my first web development studio, built it up. I thought I had made it. I thought that I was a success until I went and tried to find a wealth manager, someone to help me grow and build my wealth. And they basically said that you don't even have enough money to make this phone call worthwhile for me.
Mm.
And that was why I started Freeman Capital, was to help everyday people like you and I, especially people of color, build generational wealth.
Okay, so let's kind of dive into this.
Yeah.
Um, you found out that you didn't necessarily have the financial situation that you were looking for.
Mhm.
What does that do to your psyche when you find out you don't even have the right information to do what you want to do?
So you got to put this in perspective. I mean, at this time, I was 24 or 25, definitely smelling myself, because I had bought my first house at 20. I'm like, man, I'm crushing the game. And then I go to this wealth manager, and it's basically like my minimum is $1 million liquid, like not net worth. Like you need to hand me a portfolio of $1 million to talk to me. Somehow I got.
Mm.
And so right there, I'm sitting there like, hold on. I thought I was doing well. I was working hard. I bought this house and I was, growing my business. But basically, to the wealth management industry, my accomplishments, my wealth didn't matter. And so it smacked me in the face, and it really motivated me to try and find a way to solve this problem for people just like us.
And so, what would you say is solving the problem? What is the problem?
So the problem comes down to three things. Like we hear about the wealth gap, especially the racial wealth gap. 228 years it's supposed to take Black folks to catch up to white people. Now, that wealth gap, it really comes down to three main things. The first is a lack of access, a lack of education, and a lack of tools. So because those three things have been either systematically removed from us, or we just did not know where to go, we did not have the patterns and the behaviors to not just build wealth, but then build generational wealth over time. And that is the problem, because when you look at our income growth, African Americans, Hispanics, we are we are reaching higher income brackets faster than our counterparts. But we're not transferring that high income into wealth. And that is the problem.
Now, you made a distinction here, so we got to dive into this. You
Right.
said the difference between wealth and generational wealth. Why is what is the difference between the two? Isn't wealth just wealth?
Yeah, so you would think it is, right? So wealth is a moment in time. Generational wealth is setting up your family. So we've all heard these stories of lottery winners, of athletes who make it big, they have wealth, but it doesn't become generational wealth because they go broke.
Right.
So the problem for us isn't generating income, isn't building wealth. The problem is sustaining wealth to the next generation to move forward. When you look at the statistics on how generation is passed from one family to another, that's where you really dive into the problem. Because the problem is that we have not been building the habits, the access, the tools, and the education on how to not just build wealth, build income, but then pass it on so that our kids do better. Basically, every generation of Black people and Hispanics are repeating and starting from zero.
Mm. And so they're always on the ground floor. They never get to the penthouse of generational wealth.
Yep. I mean, and I can send you some great charts later, because there's some folks from, I believe it was the University of Michigan, who did a really cool infographic that showed that even when people of color start in a higher income bracket, they still fall down into a lower income bracket by the next generation.
Now, why is that though? What would be your best guess? I know you said lack of
Yeah,
access. I know you named
yeah,
the three things.
yeah,
When you say lack of access, what are we
yeah.
talking about?
So when I say access, what I'm speaking to is access to expertise to help guide you.
Gotcha.
The stats say that people who have a financial advisor have double the wealth of those who don't in the same period. So just having access to someone who can say, hey, do this, do that, move your money this way, position yourself in this direction, that alone can double your wealth. And then when it comes to transferring that wealth, which is called estate planning, that is another major gap that we have had. I saw a research report that said from slavery to now, African Americans have lost, I believe it was over $2 trillion in wealth because it wasn't passed correctly or it was stolen from generation to generation.
Yeah, we
That's
can.
wills, estates, that's the proper tools in place so that wealth can move easily from one generation to another.
You see all these stories over and over again, at least in the entertainment realm, sometimes in sports, where this artist, I think Prince, I don't
Prince
want to,
didn't have a will.
yeah, Prince. I can't remember who other big names are,
Yep.
but these big names, big estates. But
Yep.
then where does the money go after after you pass? And so that's what you're saying is okay. You got
Yep.
the first, you got this person who maybe did get to the third, fourth, or fifth level of that building, but then
Yep.
when they passed, they didn't have anything in place to actually hand it off to someone within their family to keep it going. So where does that money go?
So what happens is that you go to, now we're going into a bit of the nuances details, but in general, the state then steps in and the
Gotcha.
state will decide how and where money will go. And then you have to argue to get your share of money as a descendant. So one of my friends, his father passed a few years back, just kind of very unexpectedly, did not have a will. It took him like 4 or 5 years to get that money. That is opportunity lost. He could have been leveraging that for the goodwill of his father who built that, but instead was having to pay lawyers, having to deal with court systems to try and get that money. Now he had the means to do that fight to get it, but if he didn't have it, then that would have been an even longer run. And
Gotcha.
so and we see it especially with houses as well. Someone may own a house, and if the taxes aren't paid right, if the beneficiaries aren't set up right, that house might go to the state first, and then it's getting auctioned, and then you got to. All of these things are happening because we aren't setting ourselves up for generational wealth. And so that's why we make that a point of what we do is that we want to make sure that A, we help you build wealth now, and then B, we help you build generational wealth for the future.
So you said when you have a financial advisor, someone in your corner,
Yeah,
this could potentially double your wealth. What
yeah,
do you think the main difference is between having one and not having one?
yeah. So I just want to give a couple use cases of our own customers, right? So we had someone who came to us. He was making good money for his city. He was trying to pay off his student loans. He wanted to buy a house and save for retirement. The mentality that he had was first, I'll take this time, pay off all of my student loan debts, and then I'll save for my down payment, and then I'll save for my retirement. Doing that type of staggered approach, it's very logical, but there are sometimes better ways. So when he was able to meet with his planner, he signed up, connected to his platform, and it's like, hey, rather than doing that, your student loan interest rate was like 3%, very, very low. You can take that from 10 years to 30 years, decrease your monthly payment, and then on our platform, we give real world advice. Like, hey, you live in New York. If you don't, if you can stop taking Ubers and start taking the metro, you can save up to I think it was around $1,000 per month. And so doing those two things, we're gonna say, hey, now the next step is you take this more cash flow from your student loans, more cash flow from cutting down your budget. I want you to put that into your retirement via your pre-tax contributions. And that's very important. What that means is that he's able to increase the money going into his retirement while decreasing what he will have to pay in taxes because his income will be lower.
And
So go ahead.
it's the same money. You're just
Shifting it
shifting
around.
it and getting it in position for it to work for him.
Exactly. And so then at the end of this scenario, he ended up with, his student loan payment. Yes, it would take longer, but it was fixed and the cost was less. He made one lifestyle change, put more money in his pocket. He now is contributing more money to his retirement every month, which can then be used. You could pull out the first $10,000 from your retirement and put it for your down payment of your house. So this guy made no income growth, but we helped him to better use his money to move forward on all three of his goals at the same time, one-on-one. That's what an advisor can do for you. It can help you optimize your time and your money now instead of trying to figure out and delaying it and doing it over time.
Do you think when we're talking about this wealth gap, do you think part of that is a
Mm-hmm.
group of people already had someone to give them this guidance, or do you think it's bigger
Oh yes.
than just that?
Oh yeah. Yeah. So let's take a step back. There are a
Sure.
lot of financial services, okay?
Okay.
But when you really look at the financial services, most of them are starting with the assumption of my target market already knows how to invest, knows what investing is comfortable with dealing with the ups and downs of the market. And really, they're just coming to me to help make it more efficient and cost effective, right? So when you look at a lot of great apps like Robinhood, it's free to sign up and invest, or other ones like, okay, they're going with the assumption that people know what they want to do, they know what they're trying to do. Let's just make it cheaper. Well, what our thesis is that we want to help folks build first generation wealth. And so that means that we have to take a step back and say, hey, where are you as a person? Let's fill those education gaps. Have you ever invested before on your own? How much experience do you have in the market or with just putting money away for a savings goal? So we start from that perspective, and because of that, it allows us to tailor our services to try and build wealth, not just make it cheaper to buy and sell a stock.
Now, most financial advisors,
Mhm.
is that accessible to the general public, or are those services expensive?
So what they do is that a lot of financial advisors have tiers in their plans.
Okay.
If you are so most of them charge their fees off of a percentage of assets. So if you have $1 million, they'll charge a 1% fee, which means they get $10,000, right?
Hmm.
But that does not work if all you have is $1,000,
Right.
because now they look at you and say, hey, the same time that I would spend for $1 million client, I'm gonna spend for $1,000 client, but I won't make the same amount of money. And so they are incentivized to only serve the wealthy because that's how they make their money. I'm not mad at it, but that's just how it works.
Right.
And so we feel like in order to make things accessible, we have to make it as easy as subscribing to Netflix or Hulu. And that's why with our plans, we don't segregate people based off of assets. It's, hey, if you want to sign up, we have a monthly plan that you can pay just like you pay for Netflix and Hulu. And so that is a big difference because a lot of financial advisors use the old mentality of if you have wealth, then I can make money off of that. So I'll charge you a percentage of your assets.
Now, how long, you may have already said this, so I apologize if I missed it. How long have you been on this mission of getting this information out to our people?
So it started first in 2015. And 2015 was when I had the original idea.
Okay.
And it's gone through a couple of versions. We have learned a lot, but it's really been, now, wow, that's a 5-year journey. Yeah, so in May, it'll be a 5-year journey from first idea to where we are now.
Now, on both sides of this, what has
Mhm.
been the toughest part about this journey for you, and then what has been maybe the triumph of it
Yeah.
all. Both sides of that, if you can touch on both for me.
I'll say that the toughest part has truly been is that the wealth management and financial industry and all of the supporting services that enable it are built off of the business model of serving people with high assets. And so a lot of not just the financial industry, but even the supporting technology that you need to have to run your company, they all base it off of a percentage model. And so
Right.
they all think of, okay, you're gonna have a whole lot of money, you're gonna have a whole lot of assets. So I'm gonna build my business model off of your business model being built that same way. But for us, that's not our business model at all. And so we've had to find ways to try and like work things into the way that we are doing to make wealth management accessible for all. And that's been a really hard part because even like the regulators, they are used to, because we are a regulated entity. So they are used to a regular percentage based fee.
Right.
And during our first audit, we had to tell them like, hey, 'cause virtually every financial firm gets audited at some point. And during our first one, we were like, hey, we're not doing that fee. So we had to get them to understand why we're not doing it, why we want to do it a different way. So it's like the whole industry is going left, and we're trying to go right because we feel like going right is going to help the most people. And to the second part of your question, it's been the it's been the excitement from the people. Like it's it when people who need help find that there is someone and a company and a group of people that are trying to help them, that that energy that you get from folk being thankful, from getting guidance. Like, we just had someone who, because of Corona and other things, they, had to shut down their business. They're thinking about filing bankruptcy, and they had no one to go to. And they were able to talk to a certified financial planner who normally charges hundreds of dollars per hour, but through our service was able to talk to someone and then get clarity so that they can sleep at night and feel less stressed. To me, that's the best part of it. Like that is what allows me to have the energy to deal with everything else.
Gotcha. Now, when I go to your website, it has um, this language of automation. Why
Yes.
is that such a big deal in this space?
So the automation is key because in order to uh, reach the scale to where we can help enough people and still make it cost effective, we have to automate a lot of the back end processes. And so now the customers, they don't really experience that, except that they might get a faster response, or things might, they might talk to a chat bot, things like that. But the automation is what helps us internally enable our planners and advisors do more in less time, because the average human advisor only has in total 150 clients.
Right.
And so for us, with our current automation level, we are able to serve over 800 clients for every one advisor. This
Wow.
means that uh, our staff aren't spending time typing up reports, aren't filling out documentation. Like, it's being done by the platform and service, and then the planner spends time doing the most important part, talking to the customer directly. And
Now,
so that's why automation is so important, because it enables us to live and serve as many people as we can.
now, from a business side, investor side,
Yeah.
how did you know that you wanted to go in that direction of having automation being a big part of your business model?
So I think that is just, and it's funny that you asked that, because someone recently reached out to me who is in the industry and is thinking of going independent. And he's like, hey, like, who did you work for? How did you come to this? And really, because I've always been a technology guy, like I can remember being on the internet, and I'm gonna date myself, but I can remember being on American Online when it was just text, no
Right.
pictures,
Right.
just text.
Right.
So I've been on the internet as a tech guy from teenage years, and so as a result, I always think of everything in the lens of leveraging technology. And so when I looked at this problem was how do we make it as accessible as possible to help as many people as we can, automation was just the natural way for me to think it through. And it just enables us to help the most people that we can.
Now, help me remember. You said the three things that are the root of the problem are
A lack of
a
education,
okay.
a lack of access, and a lack of tools.
And does your platform answer all three of those items?
Yes, we are providing access because our costs are as cheap as Netflix and Hulu to get started. We are providing free education, and when you are a member, you get one-on-one education with the topics that you need. And then we have automated tools to make investing easy to get started and very efficient. So those are the three ways that we solve those three problems.
Okay, so walk me through this. I decide I've been listening to Black Equity Premium. I want to learn more about your
Yep,
company and learn, get in the game and have
yep,
a financial advisor in my
yep,
corner. Walk
yep.
me through
So
how is this process going to work?
yeah, so and this is just for the Black equity folks. Like, there's a different process for everyone else, but I'm gonna give
Okay,
y'all the exclusive process for you all. So
okay,
because you're a member of Black Equity Network, and thank you for building this network because we need more networks like this. I mean, we should talk about that at another point.
okay.
But you get an exclusive link through this network to sign up and not only get a free one-on-one consultation with a financial planner, but you also will get 1 month free.
Wow.
And so you get to use the service and pay no financial planning costs for that first month. And then so you use that special link to kind of sign up. As soon as you sign up, the first thing that you'll be prompted to do is to go in and schedule your call with your planner. And then that call will happen as soon as your schedule permits. It could be the next day or next week, depending on you. But then concurrently, you will be able to connect your investment and your personal and your credit card accounts to our platform so that we can begin to help you figure out what is your net worth? What tools do you have to help solve your problems or reach your goals? And then if you want, you can begin to invest as well. And so that's all what is going on. And then you get access to education through our website, through working with our planner, and with our upcoming academy launch, which is our private social network and education academy tiered to helping people become more financially empowered.
That is very exciting. I'm excited for our Black Equity listeners.
Yep.
So after they've done the free month, what
Yep.
are we looking at as far as the plans and
Yep.
and the different tiers and
Yep.
what does each one offer?
So we have three level up plans, and later on, for those who might hear this later, you all can sign up on freemancapital.co. Just go to pricing, and there you can pick your plan. So we have three plans. One that's just for investing, if you want to invest at a very low cost. A second one, which is around a self-managed tool where you get the opportunity to invest and use some of our tools and talk to a planner as needed. And then our third plan is our dedicated CFP plan. And so we'll have all of the pricing there on the website, but it is literally as simple as we work with you every month on every plan. Either we'll send you emails and remind you of certain actions that you need to take. You'll set a goal and then we'll work with you to help to achieve that goal in times like this with COVID-19 going on. Like we are going to send out even today that there are auto insurance companies who are sending back premiums
Right.
because folks aren't driving, right? And so we will just try to stay on top of as many of these things as we can, and then notify you to put yourself in the best position you can be financially, and tell you what steps to take. And then we do that all year long. And so that is the service that you'll get where every month we'll follow up with you with a certain things. If it is tax time or at the end of the year and it's time to look at your refund check, we'll help you plan so that you can do the calculation of, do you really even want to have a refund check? Because there is a argument to be made that it's better to have that money in your pocket now versus giving it to the government and then getting it back later. And so we will work with you during each month on a certain topic and category to help you grow and build your wealth.
Let's touch on that just a little bit. I know they'll
Yeah.
get more in depth with their own situation, but for people who may be seeing this clip circulating,
Yep.
how the stimulus check that's coming in, what are
Yep.
your thoughts about that? How should that be played out? I know everybody's situation may be different, but just
Right.
when you first heard about a potential stimulus check, what were your first thoughts?
So my first thoughts are, I am thankful that it's happening, but it's not going to be enough, and it's not going to be enough for a lot of people. So people like you and I who may have a chance to work from home and they'll be all right, like, that's a different thing. But when you take people that may be working at a restaurant, in the gig economy, those types of situations, the general advice that we say is that the most important thing is to build up your emergency fund, because in this day and time, cash is king. And so so when you get that check, it's going to be critical to have that in your fund and stretch it for as long as you can, because we don't know when or if another fund or check will be sent out. And we don't know how long this crisis will go on. And so the other thing is that even if you aren't, even if you aren't in, should I start over?
Oh, you're fine.
All right, cool. And then even if you aren't in that class to where you have lost your work or you've been laid off, the other thought is, how secure is your company at this time? There are companies who are downsizing, who are making cuts. And so when these checks come in, the number one thing to do is to make sure that your emergency fund is solid. And by that, we're talking like 6 months. If you don't have 6 months saved up, then I would recommend on a general level to just hold on to that cash until you know that you are secure and that things are back to normal. If you are past the emergency fund point, then there could be investment opportunities. We would be happy to speak with you all one-on-one to help recommend plans or recommendations on how to invest in this climate. But that's generally where we are, because we don't know if it's going to end in 2 months or 4 months or what. And so because we want to hedge conservatively to help folk be as confident as possible with their financial present and future.
Now, who is your ideal client for Freeman Capital? Who would you envision being the right type of person for what you want to accomplish?
So the right type of person that we want to work with, one, has to be focused on uh, generational wealth, and that's really important, because there are some people who they want to like invest. They want to put something in now, flip it, make like 10x if that's even possible, and get them like, we don't like, that's not what we're trying to do. We want to work with people who realize that they want a better life now, in 10 years, 20 years, and for their kids in 100 years. We want to work with your folks who have that long-term type of mentality, but making changes now to help them get there. Also, those who are very comfortable with technology, with Zoom meetings or IG Live and all that, like you, because we are an online service. We are the first Black-owned automated wealth management platform in the country that is registered with the SEC, the Security and Exchange Commission. So we serve all 50 states. So they can be anywhere, but we are looking for people who are not trying to make quick money, but folks who are trying to make long money for themselves and for their families.
Now, say that stat one more time, because I felt revolutionary talk right there. You said you're the only black.
Yes,
What? Tell me
yes.
that one more time.
We are the first
First,
Black-owned automated wealth building platform in the country that is registered with the Security and Exchange Commission.
how does that feel?
In one regard, it feels amazing, but then in another one, it's disappointing. right? Like,
Mm.
from like their own personal, oh, great, I'm number one. Like, that's really cool. But then it's like, bruh, it's 2020. Like, there should be multiple firms. And I know because people have reached out to me that, there will be firms coming behind us too.
Right.
And that's good. But like, to me, it just shows that we have to continue to diversify our skills. Whatever we do, we turn out to be great at. I mean, if you look at all of these sports, from basketball to golf, and me, I'm big into Formula One. And all of those sports. Once we got in, we cracked that thing open. And
Right. Right.
so, in terms of finance, we need to do that same thing. In terms of building patterns of wealth building, we need to do that same thing. So I'm honored, and really, I probably wear it more as a responsibility to do things right, because I am the first one, versus just trying to go out there and just kind of do a big bang or anything like that. Because when you're first, like, it's kind of like, and I'm not Jackie Joyner, I mean, not Jackie Robinson at all, but like, when you're first, you just want to not mess things up so that
Right.
others can come
Right.
behind you.
Right. Now, I've been talking recently with former athletes,
Yes.
and I'm wondering, would they be ideal candidates to work with this company or with your company? Um, and they have
Yes.
some amount of money. I don't know if they have
Hmm.
wealth, but they
Yeah.
definitely have some type of capital.
Yep.
Could you see a potential partnership there of bringing in different corners of former athletes who just don't know what to do with the money?
Exactly. So what we do is that we things from beginning to end. Like, we have teachers on our platform now, right?
Okay.
But we also have like a private wealth service for those truly high net worth folks who want to work with us, and they get that experience. Because this is crazy. Now, I'm not going to name the name of the bank, but
Okay.
there is a bank who in December turned away a football player, and he had $12 million that he was looking to invest. They
Okay.
said he was too big and too black to be a customer at their
Oh
bank. I'll
no.
send you the link to it later. I'm
Okay.
not going to say their name, but
Okay.
the reason why I bring it up is because right now we are still dealing with prejudice and racism.
Right.
And so, for us, it's not just about like, oh, we are going to serve, black and brown people, but it is about making people feel valued and accepted, whether you got $1 or $100 million, because that is what matters the most. Like, when you get down to the crux of this whole wealth building game, it is one person with another person trying to help them be secure. Because finances is a tool. Like, it's not the end all God. It is a tool that can enable you to live a better life. And so the way that we see it, that it is our job to help as many people as we can live that life and go to bed not worrying about money. And that can impact people who have $1 and folks who have $100 million. Now, their needs and services are going to be different, but the key is finding a way to help serve them. And that's what our automation does as well. It lets us serve both ends of that spectrum.
Now, full disclosure, you and we had an opportunity to meet before this
Yes.
conversation, which
Yeah.
just let everybody know I meet with everybody before I talk with them,
Yeah.
recording wise.
Yeah.
Um, you talked about Powernomics and how you were
Yeah.
reading that book.
Yeah.
For
It's fu-
those who
so this is not staged, but I had it right here next to me. Yeah, it was totally not staged.
so for those who don't know about Powernomics,
Yeah.
because I've read Powernomics, we talked just briefly about it, we kind of brushed
Yeah.
over it.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to get into it because I knew we would be having this conversation. So
Right.
now that we're here, we've been able to, communicate what the problem is, how to solve it.
Yeah.
What did Powernomics teach you?
It taught me a lot. For one, it's many lessons. I would say that the top one or two, maybe three. The number one lesson is we have to enable and support ourselves to solve our own problems. That's the number one thing, right? It is great to have support and participation from other people, but we need to own, build, and support our own industries and companies. That's the number one way to build our communities. Um, because our country is driven by capitalism, we might we might want and desire to have all the goodwill that we want to have, but at the end of the day, the power structure of this world and especially this country is based off of economic power. And so in order to do that, the number one basis that we have to build and support and drive our own companies. And that's not a that's 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 not a message of exclusivity, because every community, every culture comes here and they build their own businesses and then they invest together with other cultures as well. So the message that I got is that to help us to make a bigger impact in this country and in this world to help more people, we have to continue to build and support and engage with our own companies. That's probably the biggest message that I took away from the book.
You know, in the book, it talks about the first level being economics. And with us launching
Yes.
the Black Equity Premium channel
Yeah.
and having people come in and getting
Hmm.
exclusive access to content like this,
Hmm.
I do not find it to be a coincidence that one of the first conversations we're talking about is economics,
Yeah.
because
Wow.
before I go and start talking about politics and education and all the, if you read the book, you'll understand what I'm
The
saying.
levels.
All these levels. Before we get to
Yeah.
these levels, we got to start
Yeah.
right here.
Yes.
And I don't think it is by chance that you
Yes.
reached out to me at this exact moment for us to
Yeah.
build a solid foundation for our people through
Yes.
economics. Because if we
Yes.
can get the economics right, then
Yes.
we can play the next tier and the next tier and really play the game that's out there.
Yeah. And I mean, because when you look at our nonprofits, we will start a lot of nonprofits, but then we have to go to other people to get that money to do the work of the nonprofits. And that money can flow when the economy is doing well. People are benevolent. I'll give you money. I'm feeling good. But in tough times, one of the first things people cut is nonprofit donations. So for me, I connect economic independence and stability to doing good work, because then you don't have to go and ask someone for money to donate, to give. Like Freeman, for example, during this coronavirus, we did a small raffle campaign thing where we're giving $250 out to someone who's in a situation that is kind of tough. Now, yes, 250 is not 2.5 trillion, but but we were able to do what we can on our own because of where we are. As
Right.
we get farther along, we'll do more. And so being economically empowered as companies and as a community, then it can enable us to support ourselves when hard times come.
What inspired? Because as you talk, these images and these visions come to me. What inspired the free man
Yes.
name of Freeman?
So it is
Should I call it Freeman or should I call it Freeman?
great question. So it depends on what meaning you want to vibe with.
Okay.
So the the name originally is homage to my great grandma,
Okay.
Evelyn Freeman.
Okay.
Okay, she was born first generation out of slavery. She got married to my great grandfather, and they bought homes in DC. Like this is before fix it and flip it. Like it's like like pre-segregation days or
Right.
pre-integration days.
Right.
They bought homes, and they weren't big homes. They're like two. Like they home that they lived in like one. But that mentality of we will do what we can to make life better for us now and make life better for our family in the future. And so that type of generational wealth mindset, I throw back to them and the Freeman name. So that's one meaning. Then the other one, which is the one that you were speaking to. After slavery, a lot of people picked the name Freeman because they were literally free men. So it goes to that meaning as well. And then the third one is that we want our customers to be free men and women financially. So whatever meaning you like the most is the one that you can rock with. But the first one was in homage to my great grandparents, who their first step enabled my family and my parents to be where they are now. And that type of generational mindset is what we hope to instill in everyone who works with us.
Now, your audio went out just a little bit. It's not out. It just before you sound like you were in stereo, and then now it sounds like it just went. It's not in stereo anymore. So I just want to.
Can we pause and I will get earbuds?
Yes.
All right, hold on.
So this the actual name of the company, Freeman.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Freeman? Is it Freeman? Where are we going with this? I like the name, but I'm sensing that there's more to the story.
Yeah, so and there are a couple meanings that you could have. It depends on which one that you like the most. But
Okay.
I will say that I named it after my great grandparents, George and Evelyn Freeman. They, my great grandmother Evelyn, she was first gen born out of slavery. She married George, and they were able to buy a couple homes in D.C. This is like in segregation times, and so now they did this, and it wasn't a lot of homes. It was like two, like theirs and then one more. But that mentality of I want to take a step in my generation to better my family and better future generations is the foundation of where my personal family is. Like if they wouldn't have done that, I don't know that I would have been here. So finance and taking care of your finances has been passed down from generation to generation. So we hope to instill that in everyone, and that's part of the Freeman name. Second, obviously, after slavery, a lot of black people picked the last name Freeman because they were a free man. Definitely applies there. And then we want every person to be a financially free man or woman. So anyone of those three you can pick, but the original was truly a homage to my great grandparents who set this foundation for generational wealth.
I like that a lot. For that last part that you said, for those who want to be a free person through economic freedom,
Mm-hmm.
how do they do that? I mean, obviously they're going to work with your company, but
Yeah.
what does that look like to be free?
So it really starts off with first, what is the vision that you have for your life? Because financially free for some can mean I just want to live a normal life in the house that I have and just not worry about money. And other people may want to be financially free and take a trip every year. So it starts with like crafting what is your vision for financial freedom, and then what tools do you have, and what tools do you need to acquire. And when I say that, it could mean something like, okay, you need to acquire a higher paying job to enable you to have more income. Or you need to start a side business or side hustle to enable you to have more income to allow you to put that money to work. Or, ways to pay off your debt and financing. So like those are all the way that we view finance is that these are all tools to help you reach your goal. And so then once that's done, it's about having a plan that you are tracking to every single month. Like they always say, if you don't write it down, it's just a dream. So we like to make it actionable steps. Like, all right, this month you want to get to this goal of financial freedom. Well, this month we need to work on the fact that we did a comparison of your salary at your job, and you are being paid 50% lower than market rate. What do you want to do about that? Do you want to ask your boss for a raise? Do you want to look for a new job? Like those are the conversations that have to be had to enable your tools to be used as best as possible to reach your goals of financial freedom.
So before we go, I want to tackle a couple of objections
Yes.
that people may have with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to at least put it out there,
Yeah.
so we can at least document this. So one of the first objections is, well, hey, is my financial information going to be secure? You're going to have access to my credit card information or my
Right.
financial information.
Right.
What do you say to that part?
So first, I'll say that your data is only stored on the service for short periods of time. And so when you log into the platform, you often will have to refresh your data, which basically means that we pull it down at that point to then run the calculations to give you the output. So we aren't storing data for years and keeping it for forever. Like we think it is a risk for us to hold everyone's data all of the time for forever. And so we try and have very minimal times in which we do hold on to your data, and then it's erased from our servers. And that is why when you log back in, you may have to refresh it because we are pulling it down to update everything for you in that moment and time.
The second objection, and we kind of touched on this earlier, is, hey, I don't have the necessary money to be putting towards this. This is going to be too expensive. What do you say
Right.
to that objection?
So I would say that uh, because our lowest price sorry, just pause. We have a new pricing that's coming out like Thursday, so I'm like stuck between the old price and new prices. But can you ask that one more time, and then because this is not going out to like next week, right?
This will go out later this week,
What day?
probably Friday.
We should have the new pricing up on Friday. I'm very happy
Okay.
that I asked. Okay, so ask that one more time.
So a second objection that some people may have, we kind of touched on this earlier,
Yep.
is, hey, I don't have the necessary money for this.
Right.
This is going to be too expensive. What do you say to that objection?
So I'll say that one of the plans that we are launching with is as low as $15 per month. That's the cost. No, that is more than the cost of a pizza. And
Right.
so the question that I would have is, what do you value the most? Do you value building a secure financial future? And if so, is $15? I mean, that is less than Netflix and Hulu on the no commercial plan. So I think that we tried our best to price it so that people that value it and want it can get started. There is no contract, so you can leave at any time if you're not happy. But we did our very best to make it so that cost is not a something that is blocking folks from getting started.
Third objection that may be out there. Hey, you may only give me advice that's going to be beneficial to you. You may be getting
Oh,
something
great
from,
question.
you may be getting something from
Yep.
these investments. What do you say to
Yep.
that objection?
So I love that question. We are what's called a fiduciary. What that means is that, and this is a really big point. Okay, so you can get investment advice or coaching from a lot of people, but when you're a fiduciary, that means that the Security and Exchange Commission is governing us, and we, by regulation, have to have to recommend and do what's in your best interest, or they come down on us. And so when you're dealing with other firms that aren't a fiduciary, there's more of a risk there. But here, I we could lose our status if we don't do what's in your best interest. The only revenue stream that we have is the monthly subscription rate. We do not get kickbacks. We do not get money from other sources. The only revenue that we get is the subscription rates and the revenue that you may give us for managing your assets. That's it.
Now, something totally different from what you're saying now is
Mhm.
the private wealth side. Is that managed differently if you're work?
No,
Oh,
no, it's
okay.
the same thing. So again, we try and treat everyone fair, even though it might not be the exact same service, but we try and treat everyone fair. And so it's the exact same thing with them as well.
Awesome. Awesome. For those who don't know, how can, obviously everything will be in the
Yep.
show notes.
Yep.
They can click the link, but how can people be a part of this movement, get their finances in
Yep.
order, and also work towards generational wealth?
So, of course, you have our website, which is freemancapital.co. You can go there. You can join our email list. You can sign up directly. We're pretty active on Instagram, where we have two profiles. We have our main one, which is Freeman Capital, and then we have another one that is probably perfect for you all, is invest.black, where we look at everything from people of color and Black perspective. So that is the two best places to find us: the website and Instagram.
What are your final thoughts for the people in the culture right now who are they're talking the money game, they're talking about investing, but it always seems like everybody's having the conversation, but when you look at the stats, something's
Yeah.
not adding up. What are your final thoughts for the people out there who potentially are thinking about working with you?
So I think it's just like when we were all learning how to drive back in high school. We were all excited about about driving and getting our license. We all want to do it. We all talked about it, but it wasn't until we had a coach, someone to sit in that driver's seat with us and guide us through that process, were were we able to really start driving and start going down the road. That's what Freeman Capital is doing. Is that we want to be in the car with you and to help you take the first, next, and future steps. And that's why this is so important to us and why we're so focused on building first generation wealth.
Calvin Williams Jr., thank you so much for providing access to on today's episode. Thank you for allowing our Black Equity Premium listeners to have that first free month. For those who will listen to
Mhm.
this episode later, you will not be getting that free month unless there's something else that Freeman Capital offers at that time. But that doesn't stop you from still. Are you still going to be offering
Oh yes,
that free
we'll,
consulting,
we'll
or
still
how
have the
long is
free.
that? Okay.
So currently, we were planning to continue to do the free consulting through the month of April.
Okay.
But because the reason why we started was because people are anxious and they have concerns because of COVID-19, we are going to extend that beyond April. So if folks hear this a little bit later, they can still come to the website. They can still sign up, get a free financial planning call with a planner,
Awesome.
and then go on from there. So we will do our best to take care of you guys because that's why we're doing
Thank you so much for coming on our platform today. And we look forward to having more conversations like this. We're really solving root problems here.
this.
Powernomics, making sure that we tackle the economic side first, and
Yep.
then we get to move up them tiers. Because once we can get up into them other tiers, then we can make some real chess moves in the
Exactly.
game.
Exactly.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.